Lonely Monk Productions. I don't know if y'all have heard Midnight Freakout by Sofia Valdez yet, but yo!
That's my Jawn!
Hey, yo, displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. You're tasting things that don't need to be measured.
What's good, friends and family, neighbors near and far? Welcome to an all-new episode of the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast. The podcast, website, brand, movement, way of life dedicated to the embrace and championing of your passions. I am your host, Nate Runkle, a.k.a. Jawn Tester, a.k.a. Nate 3.0, back at it again with yet another episode of the podcast. As always, I hope this podcast finds you all in good health and in good spirits. On today's episode, I have an excellent conversation with Dave Hill of the band Valley Lodge. We talk about his career in music, his career in comedy, his writing, and so much more. Dave and Valley Lodge are coming to town this Friday, November 8th, for a show at Philomoka, alongside Mikey Erg doing a solo set, and the Blackburns, which is a show you will not want to miss out on. Our chat about all of that is coming up in a minute here. But first, how are we doing? I don't know how many people out there live in a swing state like we do, but boy, howdy is the full court press in effect. My texts are blowing up, my mailbox and doorknobs are full of mailers. We're coming down to the end here of the election. Hopefully just the end of the election and not, I don't know, say democracy or whatnot. You know, shit is super tense. But here is what I can tell you. I am going to vote on Tuesday for the candidate that I believe will not just look out for my interests, but the interests of the country first, not based on personal gripes or some ridiculous falsehood drummed up in the worst corners of Twitter. No, I'm voting for someone who I may disagree with on some things, but I have no fear of retribution for believing differently. I'm personally voting for Kamala Harris to be the next president of this country, and you may agree with that, and you may not. But here's the deal. You have a voice. You are given one vote that counts same as mine, same as everyone's. And I believe, regardless of whether you are voting for the person I am or not, it is important that you use your voice, your vote. Even if you are a blue voter in a red district or vice versa, do not sit out. The vote may not go your way, but that is no reason to not let your voice be heard. So, if you hear this in time and you're on the fence about showing up on Tuesday, get off the fucking fence and vote. You know, if you're into this show, or, well, more importantly, if you're into me, the greatest way to stay on top of all things Nate and all things Yo, That's My Jawn is to jump up on www.yothat'smyjawn.com and follow the link tree to the website and the socials and all of that. We got merch up there. We got a mailing list that, you know, would totally be cool if you signed up for. All that. www.yothat'smyjawn.com. Give it a visit and, you know, rate and review the podcast wherever you're listening to this at. If you're viewing it on YouTube, if Spotify's your spot, if Apple Podcasts is the apple of your podcast eye, wherever, if you listen to this show, take 1 second and give us a little rate, a little review. Is that fair? I think that's fair. Okay. Well, if that's fair, then let's get into this show. My guest today is a musician, comedian, writer, podcaster, and actor born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, who now calls New York his home. He is currently the singer and guitar player for the power pop band Valley Lodge, who will be performing here in town on Friday, November 8th at Philomoka with Mikey Erg and the Blackburns. He is also the co-host of the newly launched podcast, Axe Lords, the show that, quote, explores their common obsession with the guitars, gear, and the guitarists that have shaped the ever-evolving voice of the greatest instrument in the history of any civilization anywhere, end quote. Folks, it is my honor to welcome to the show, Dave Hill. Ladies and gentlemen, I am joined today by the great Dave Hill. Dave, thank you for joining me on Yo, That's My Jawn.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. I'm super excited to have this conversation, to pick your brain and whatnot. I always like to start these things off with some kind of weird connection I have either with the guest or with their music. And for you, we actually share something in common. We're both alumni of the Risk podcast.
Oh, nice. I love the Risk podcast. Kevin Allison, JC.
Yes.
Excellent program.
Yeah, I guess last year was the first time I did. I've done two or three appearances there.
Oh, nice.
Love that stuff. It's good. It's awesome. Yeah. It's awesome.
Excellent show.
So tell everybody a little bit about yourself growing up. Where are you from?
I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. The mean streets, the diamond paved streets. Because it's one or the other of Cleveland. I'm from the east side of Cleveland, University Heights. If anyone knows the area, it's a real rough suburb. Not really.
What was going on around that? Like, did you have like music around your house, comedy, stuff like that, or?
Music for sure. Like, my dad played the piano and guitar, so we all took piano lessons and kind of as kind of like something you had to do. But everyone kind of dropped out of it, and I kind of stuck with, I wanted to play guitar, so I switched over to that when I was like 13, and now I just haven't stopped.
Yeah, for sure.
And I, drifted into comedy and sort of eventually dragged the guitar with me into comedy.
Yeah, I guess, what was that, like late 80s, early 90s is when you start in Sons of Elvis, right?
Yeah, that was my first band. We formed that in college at Fordham University in the Bronx. And it was buddies, like a couple of my buddies, Tim Parna and Pat Casey, that, we were all from Cleveland and we're buddies in high school. And we kind of all wound up at Fordham. I think kind of because we wanted to eventually form a band together. So, but we couldn't really tell our parents that. And then we met our buddy John Borland, who is from New York, and he became the singer after a few other friends were briefly the singers. And then, we had that band, and it was just kind of like, for me, crash course in having a band or whatever. Because I'd never really had one for more than, I played cover bands in high school for like a week at a time or something. But yeah, we were like kind of determined to make something of it. And we ended up getting a record deal like shortly after college, and kind of had a, blip of 90s, radio, MTV stuff. And then it kind of all fell apart as these things tended to do in most cases. So sad story. No, it was all fun.
Yeah, that was like I'm mostly because that was when I was really into music and whatnot. But like one of my favorite time periods in music history is that like early 90s, where the record industry was just kind of throwing money at anything it could, trying to find essentially the next Nirvana, but like because of that, we got so many different like interesting bands that like I don't think anyone understood,
Yeah, totally. And we were kind of like totally in that era. We signed with Priority Records, which was, totally, a hip hop label, and they had like Ice Cube, and they were distributing like Ruthless Records, and later like Death Row Records, and so they wanted to get into rock, and so they signed like 3 or 4 rock bands, and we were one of them.
Is that how you guys ended up on the Higher Learning soundtrack? Because that still blows my mind. I
think so. Yeah. I think it was, because Ice Cube starred in it, didn't he?
Yeah, yep.
So, and Tyra Banks, I think that was like the first time I'd ever heard of her. I think that was totally because of that connection to Ice Cube, our good friend Ice Cube. We never met him, actually. We met some other artists on the label. I've still never met Ice Cube all these years later.
That's wild.
One day.
It'll happen. It'll happen. You've got the hilarious Snoop Dogg story. So like, I think you just got to put it out in the universe. Maybe you can open a set for Ice Cube.
I think so. Yeah, eventually. Yeah, someday I'll meet Ice Cube. We'll see. I've met who in the hip hop world of my, Snoop Dogg. I've met Chuck D. I've met Flava Flav. I met Flava Flav, like in the. Like it would have been like 88 or 89. There was a tour. It was like Public Enemy, Slick Rick, LL Cool J, and Big Daddy Kane came to Richfield Coliseum in Cleveland, and me and two of my buddies, Tim and Pat, and I think probably our buddy Tony, maybe. We went out to and Flava Flav was just walking around. We had floor seats and he was walking around with a giant pencil that was taller than him. And I remember being fascinated that he was just walking around. He was out by the soundboard. And anyway, I don't know. But as you said, digressions. I digress.
I love it.
Meeting Flava Flav in the late 80s.
That's great. When did comedy kind of enter the scene? Like I always find that most musicians want to be comedians and most comedians want to be musicians. So like it makes sense. But what was the thing that kind of pushed you to get up and try some?
I would, after Sons of Elvis kind of fell apart, we formed a new band. Tim and I did, and I was a singer, reluctantly the singer in that band. And as I was kind of like learning how to do that, we'd play these shows, and I found that I enjoyed singing, or I enjoyed talking rather, in between songs, like pretty much as much as, if not more than I enjoyed playing the songs. So, and then around the same time, my sister was a journalist at the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and I was living with her, and I started writing for the Plain Dealer, kind of like, in the art section or whatever. And I would really only care about getting like one or two jokes into the article. I wouldn't really care about journalism in any way. So I think those two things, and started writing for television. And then from that, like a friend had a show in the back of a bar here in New York and asked me, he's like, "Oh, do you want to do something?" So I did it, and it just kind of grew from there.
Yeah.
I did one show and then came back and did another, and then next thing I knew, it was kind of what I was doing. So it wasn't like I didn't really set out to do it. It was kind of an accidental thing that happened in my life. And now 20 years later, it's still happening.
It's wild. You're like a well-traveled multi-hyphenate, because with the writing and the comedy and the acting and the music, you've got your hands in like all of the creatives, as I like to say. Like how do you find time to dedicate to each? Like,
I'm kind of bad at it because really the reason I like doing I just like doing those things, so I just kind of do them as they come along. So some of them I've inspired, and then other times, like right now I'm writing a comic book series, and that's, I have deadlines and stuff. So that would be an example where I'm like having fun, but I'm like, oh, I have to turn this in. So I kind of have to sit down and do it. Whereas other things, like a music thing is more like when I get ideas, I do it. And when it's done, it comes out. But it's not like someone's like, "Where's that record? We need it," But yeah, just kind of do things as I'm inspired. But I kind of always feel like that I'm never getting anything done, and I'm always frustrated. Like, oh, like today, I'm like, oh, I want to do this, I want to do that, and I'll maybe get like one thing done and go to bed feeling another day is wasted. But that's kind of how it is.
Yeah, no, I know it well. Like I'm a musician as well. I used to write. I don't, but I'm always like, I should start. I should try to write another project. I should, and no matter what I do, even when I sit down to work on it, it just doesn't. I keep putting it off, and I keep, kicking that can down the line. And especially with like podcasting, like this is the first show that I brought back. I used to have a podcast back in like 2011, 2012 with a bunch of friends and stuff. But now, like once I started this and this started rolling, then I started producing another one for a friend of mine. I co-host one. I don't know if you're familiar with WXPN here in Philadelphia, but
Of course.
I co-host a show with Bruce Warren from WXPN. That's a music discovery show, and then I have like 5 other ideas that that I keep putting pitches out on that I'm like, well, I don't know where I'm going to find this time. I can't do anything I'm supposed to do. So,
I'm the same thing. Yeah. I constantly just feel scattered but I don't know. What are you going to do?
That's right. That's exactly right. So how did Valley Lodge come together?
We've been a band for a long time. I moved to New York in 2003. It really just came to New York for the weekend in 2003. And my buddy John Kimbrough, who had one of my favorite bands ever, Walt Mink, who made some records for like Caroline Records and Columbia or Atlantic. They had kind of broken up, I guess. And so we had been talking like about doing some sort of project together, like eventually, or as a side project or something. And then finally, I wound up staying in New York after coming, and getting this. I got a job writing for a TV show, and we were like, oh, let's just pool our songs together and make a record that makes some sense out of whatever the songs are, So we made that first Valley Lodge record. I think it came out like in 2005, and it was the two of us, and we had some friends play drums and some bass here and there, and then we put like a live band together with a couple other friends, and then John ended up moving to LA, and so the band kind of every record I'm like, oh, that's probably the last one. Like, so we did the one record and it was kind of like, oh, that's just the one record. And then we got approached about releasing the album in Japan, and they wanted like bonus tracks for it. So where I was like, oh, we got to go in the studio and record like 3 new songs, and out of that we ended up recording like a whole album. But John had moved to LA by this point, so he played on that record, but was a very different record, and not nearly as good. I think it's our bad record. Not bad, but just like that's the difficult second record, as they call it. And then by the third album, the band had kind of solidified with a new, or just kind of morphed into a different lineup, and yeah, we spent. Now just had our 5th record come out like this past April. So, yeah.
Yeah, the new album's fantastic. Like Shadows in Paradise, for anybody who is unfamiliar. I will say, you mentioned putting the live band together and bringing friends in and all. One of the things that so I had been familiar with Valley Lodge probably like 2 or 3 albums now. And familiar with you. Like my entry point was Go from last week tonight. Because I was just like, I'm a big jangly guitar guy. So I heard that theme song and I was like, what the fuck is this? I was like blown away. So that was kind of when I came in. But one of the things I didn't realize until doing the research today is Eddie Eyeball plays bass with you guys.
Yeah. Eddie Eyeball, he's the bass player. And he's been in the band since about 2009. Cause John Kimbrough was the other, it was the two of us, and Phil Costello was playing bass. And then John moved to LA, and we were like a power trio, which is bad for a while. We weren't bad, but it just was not the way to do it for what we were doing. And then we were going to tour Japan for our Japanese record, and then so we were kind of putting right around then a new lineup together, and we had Rob Pfeiffer from who I'd known since we were teenagers, but he was in a band called Sensefield, and then so Eddie joined the band, but right before the Japanese tour, like he was getting married in Mexico, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm gonna do the Japanese tour, and then fly from Japan to Mexico and get married." And I thought that was an insane idea, but I didn't tell him that because I wanted him to do the tour. And then he talked to some other people who unfortunately talked some sense into him. So he ended up not doing the Japanese tour, but then has been in the band ever since, immediately after the Japanese tour. But yeah.
It's killer. I was me and my pals were enormous Two Skinny Jays fans. So it was like the first thing I was like I texted them when we were setting this up, and I was like, I'm talking to Dave Hill, but did you know that Eddie Eyeball is a fucking bass player for Valley Lodge? I had no idea.
Yeah, he's been in for whatever 15 years now. It's pretty wild, and we're starting to play more regularly. So for a while, we were very like you would play a few gigs a year, but now we're, gosh, what do we do? We have like 3 more gigs this year alone, bringing a whopping 6 gigs in the last, in this year, and we'll probably play even more next year. So we're ramping up.
It's awesome.
We're ramping up because I think we're at, having a lot of fun now. Not that we're not having fun, but it's kind of like post-pandy rock.
One of those shows on the 8th here, November 8th, is here in Philadelphia at Philomoka with our pals, the Blackburns, which is super exciting. And then, you mentioned next year. Did I see that you're doing dates with the Michael Shannon, Jason REM tour?
Yeah, we did like last February we did a tour, I think. That was like Athens to Boston basically. And they did like San Francisco and Minneapolis maybe without me, very bad shows that I wasn't a part of. I heard they didn't go over very well. No, no, they went great, I'm sure. But so we did that tour. That was like a week long or 8 days or something, and now this is going to be pretty much like a month long tour.
That's cool.
East Coast, West Coast, and like Midwest.
It's a project that's still like my friends and I have this thing that like post pandemic news stories and things that are occurring feel like Mad Libs at times, but like Michael Shannon touring REM albums is just one of those Mad Libs. Like, give me a proper noun, give me 2 proper nouns, give me a band name. Like,
yeah, it's pretty wild. Like I guess he and Jason, have known each other for a long time, and they had been doing stuff like that for fun, and they did like a one-off gig at, I think, Metro in Chicago, because they're both Chicago guys, and it went so well that people started saying like, hey, you want to come do it in my club? So that's how that first tour came together, and it was a super blast, and they were amazing. Like they did, such great versions of those songs, and Michael's such a great singer and frontman and great guy. It was just a super blast, and this one, I'm looking forward to it. Sorry, my dog freaking out in the background.
Oh, it's all good. You can't. I don't know if you can hear it on your end, but on my end, I have 2 dogs, and I'm in my basement right now, and they're tap dancing back and forth across because no one's upstairs with them. So.
Oh no, I can't hear it. My dog's always policing our apartment.
So one of the other things that happened this year that I have to pick your brain about is you were at Mongreen.
I was, yeah.
That's killer.
Well, I know what I wanted to say about, before I forget though, about the Michael and Jason REM tour. Jason came out I did a couple of tours opening for Tenacious D, and Jason came out to the first night of the first tour that I did, and he told me like, "Oh, me and Michael are going to do this. Michael and I are going to do this REM tour," and I was like, "Oh, you got to let me open that tour." And he's like, "Oh, it was like in the early stages of the planning." He's like, "Oh, we should talk about it." And then one night we were all out, and Michael and I just guilted Jason. We just cornered him, made it so I had to open that tour. Not that Jason was fighting it, but But yeah, Mondegreen, I just did it. What was it? In August?
Yeah,
a couple months ago.
How'd that go? Because sometimes I like to call myself a reformed Fish fan, but it's only because I'm too old to to go to shows really anymore. But that seemed like it had to have been a killer weekend.
It was awesome. It was 4 days of 2 days. I guess the Thursday and Friday were me and Rory Scovel, hilarious comedian, good buddy of mine, and the other 2 days were a couple other comedians. So I had never been to a Fish show or of any sort before, and I had no idea. I mean, I was familiar with them, and a fan of Trey Anastasio's playing. Obviously, he's amazing, and was like respected the band, but wasn't knowledgeable. Like, I'd never seen him or anything like that. And so I went, and I had a blast. And I was like, oh, I could have been coming to see this for years now, and I haven't been. I just kind of regretted it. So, and then, I'm doing these shows here in New York now, this residency, comedy off-Broadway residency, and Trey Anastasio came out to one of the shows. So that was really cool. I was psyched.
That's killer. How did that come about? Like, did they reach out, or was that something you kind of bid on, or?
No. Well, it was interesting because a buddy of mine, Bart Coleman, he's a huge Fish fan, but he's like a comedy producer, and he said, are you available to do this thing? And I was like, yeah. And I just thought it was Bart getting me work type thing. And then bizarrely, it turned out that they had requested me because I guess Trey Anastasio was a fan of mine, which I was pretty blown away by, because I always think no one knows who I am. So I was thrilled that and so they said that they had me on it as a surprise to him, which was really nice to hear.
That's so
even
cool.
though the band can't really go anywhere and see any shows, but they're like, oh, he was just glad you were across the field over there. But I've since met him.
That's
delightful.
Awesome. Yeah, I was really excited. Like their new album was pretty great this year. Like I've never really been a Fish album guy. I'm like their live stuff is just so incendiary that like the album versions never really live up to it. But I thought the album was really great, and I really liked the press run that Trey did. I don't know if you heard the WTF that he did with Mark, but it was phenomenal.
I heard about it. I haven't heard it yet, but I want to listen to it. I heard it was great.
It's wild. Speaking of podcasts, you've had a bunch under your belt. Are you looking to do anything else in the spirit of podcasting, or?
I have a new one. Even after kind of swearing them off for a while, I kind of keep ending stuff because in finishing books, I always get to this deadline point where the publisher or editor or whatever is like, you got to get this done, and I panic, and then I cancel whatever else I'm doing. So I ended kind of whatever other podcast stuff I was doing, but very recently I started doing a new one that's had a couple episodes come out called Axe Lords, and it's me and my buddy Tom Beaujeur and Cindy Hewledge, and it's about guitars basically, and we talk to guitar players and bass players, but it's meant to be more like, it's not like gearhead, like alien. We want it to be like anyone can listen to it and hopefully enjoy it, because it kind of came out of like my buddy Tom and I just are always texting each other like guitars that, and like, like that we find on Reverb, and we're like, just egging each other on to buy them. And it's more like just kind of like, arguing over like what guitar finish of like, whoever played this, and like, well, it almost has nothing to do with actual guitar playing, basically, which is the idea. It's supposed to be just kind of like everything but actual guitar playing. Though we do reluctantly discuss guitar playing a little bit.
That's great. Do you have a guitar player who I don't even like to say that you think is the best, but like somebody who musically inspires you at all, or
like current players, or like new, or just classic,
or either or?
I mean, I always probably like, I don't know if it's a boring answer, but like Jimmy Page was always kind of my favorite growing up. But then, it's, Johnny Marr, Dr. No from Bad Brains, and Eddie Van Halen, and Jay Mascis, and just kind of all over the place.
Yeah.
Well, all over the place within the context of rock, pretty much.
It's funny because like my favorite guitar players all play stuff that's nothing even close to the stuff I play, and I think it's just because like I like guitar players who are good, and the stuff I play I feel like I'm a big Nels Cline from Wilco fan. Like that's
Nels Cline's amazing, and I mean guitars, it's kind of an endless thing, like. Because there's like a lot of players I like where I don't necessarily like, or I shouldn't say I don't like, but I'd say that I don't like put on their records and listen to them all the time, but I might just, because there's a certain aspect of guitar playing that to me is similar to like skateboarding or something, like to where, I think most of the music that I really like and really resonates with me is like not like really technically very hard, and but then I do kind of really like just someone ripping like all over the place. I think it's just kind of fun and cool, even if it may not have like, I mean, it sort of bled into my comedy because I use the guitar so much in my comedy shows now, but like people, this sounds an obnoxious sentence, but people are always like, oh, you're like a shredder. But I'm like, oh, I'm a shredder, like in the context of my comedy shows, because I kind of think shredding is really funny, because it's like, to me, shredding is like skateboarding or BMX riding or whatever. It's like doesn't really come into play in like, the Beatles or something.
Right.
Yeah. No, there's, there are some ripping Beatles solos on those records, but yeah, it's a whole, I don't know. I sit and think about this sort of thing all the time.
Yeah, it's, you touched on something there that I haven't thought about really, but it helps explain something I have been thinking about, which is I've been thinking a lot about John Mayer, because I've been trying to write this piece about when people are deemed corny. And how how you can respect somebody as a player, and how you can respect somebody as a creative, but still think like their entire output is not for me. and
Yeah.
like I love watching John Mayer play, but I'm never really like, let me put on a John Mayer song. You know what I mean? Because like I recognize the talent, but it's kind of like you said, like it's not, it's not the practical nature of listening to music that I'm enjoying there. It's actually watching technique.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's a lot of artists like that where, like I went to see Yngwie Malmsteen, which I would recommend anyone do that at some point. You should definitely go see Yngwie Malmsteen. But I don't, I don't listen to his records, but it was like, which is not to say I wouldn't listen to it. Maybe, driving someday I would listen to it for a little bit, but hypothetically. But his playing, it's amazing. It'll be, for 20 minutes, it's completely mind blowing. Then after 40 minutes, you're like, we should maybe grab some dinner. But yeah, I think there's such like a range of, it's weird because there are certain players that I really enjoy and I'm huge fans of for that reason. That kind of like just cool technical and just good vibes. The vibe has to be good too. Like I have to kind of like be into their vibe. But I wouldn't want to, almost don't want to name who these people are because I don't want to insult. I'd be like, I would never really listen to their music, but I like listening to them riff on guitar because that sounds insulting when I don't mean it that way.
Yeah.
All my favorite, with the exception, Eddie Van Halen would be someone who like I think is like the intersection of like has written some like pretty amazing songs. There's people that aren't into Van Halen, they're lost. But I think he's written some pretty amazing rock songs and is just was just a transcendently great player. But I can't really think of that many other people who were like that.
Yeah, it's definitely true. Like for the longest time, I was always a David Lee Roth guy. So like the Hagar stuff, I didn't not like, but I just never really gravitated towards out of some kind of weird loyalty to Dave that I will have to reconcile with myself.
But also, and the David Lee Roth records are superior.
Yeah, absolutely. But this past year, I've gotten really obsessed with the song "Why Can't This Be Love," which just shreds. Like it's so good.
Yeah, I mean it's ripping, and like I remember when that came out, thinking like, well, this is the only way we're getting Eddie Van Halen, so better dig in, But I think like even as like however old, teenager or whatever, I was still like, this isn't good. I mean, not that I thought it was bad, but I was like, it was kind of hitting like a different thing that wasn't me.
Yeah, no, I definitely completely understand that. I always laugh at, the Nerf Herder song Van Halen. Have you ever heard that?
I'm sure I have. I know the band.
It's there's this whole breakdown where it's like, Sammy Hagar, is this what you wanted? Like, and Dave lost his hairline, but you lost your cool. But I guess Perry Grip from Nerf Herder had asked Sammy Hagar to be in the music video, and he was like, "Are you out of your fucking mind? Like, you completely shit on me throughout the whole thing." So no, I'm not going to do that. Which is great.
I could see that. I read Sammy Hagar's book, his autobiography, and it really, because when he first became the singer, I was kind of like, oh man, you're not David Lee Roth. And then I read his book because I was like, it seems to be the only, well, I guess that Alex Van Halen has a book out now, which I haven't read yet, but I was like, oh, this is probably the only way to get like some insight into Van Halen, because there's David Lee Roth's Crazy from the Heat, which was entertaining, but what is true of it, who knows? But I read Sammy Hagar's book, and I really I made my peace with I was like, oh, I don't know, he seems like a nice guy. Like, I made me go like, why was I mad at this guy? He didn't do
Yeah.
anything. Just because he's not David. So I'm actually a very pro Hagar. I mean, again, not listening to his music, but he seems like a nice guy.
Yeah, I read the book too, and like the work ethic and like the love of music that came across, I was just like, kind of the same way. Like, oh, all right, he's a good dude. Like, I can live with this.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I dig it.
Yeah, I can't say more.
Yeah, that's right. So Valley Lodge traffics in power pop a lot. What like do you have a favorite power pop band?
Yeah, I mean, I always think. I mean, I have maybe a broader definition of it than of going beyond like Big Star and Raspberries and stuff like that. But for me, like Cheap Trick, I think of as a power pop band, even though maybe some people don't. But I don't know. And then I even go, they're like Guided by Voices, I think, is a power pop band in many ways. But I don't know. Valley Lodge, I think, is just kind of like cherry picking. It's always been kind of like cherry picking, just like different things, stealing, I guess, the word I'm looking for, of just all, kind of pop things that I've always liked, whether it's like Cheap Trick or Slade or Big Star or whatever. But I don't know. I kind of think of it as, when we formed the band, I kind of thought of it as, do you remember on the Flintstones ever, like, there was a time when this band, The Way Outs, was coming to town, and they were like kind of this British invasion band, but I think they were from another planet, maybe. I can't remember. I think they were like British invasion. But I always think of Valley Lodge as kind of the same thing, like this fictional band that I'm writing songs for, and just kind of making these records that I want to exist. I don't really think it as necessarily a reflection of me or anything.
Yeah, it's really interesting that you mentioned the Flintstones, because I was, one of the things I was just going to ask you was in reference to, I talked to Paul Myers one time on the show, and we were talking power pop and all, but like his band, the Gravelberries, was named as a Flintstones reference. So
oh yeah, and I wrote a thing about, I wrote in one of Paul's there's Go All the Way and then Go Further. I think it's Go Further I wrote a piece in.
Oh, that's cool. It all ties together.
Yeah, yeah.
The one thing I was going to ask you, though, which was something that he brought up to me, and now I'll throw it at you. Kiss. Do you think Kiss is a power pop band?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess in a way, yeah. I mean, in a way, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing with power pop is neither powerful nor popular. It's like a great misnomer. But I would argue that Kiss is both of those things.
Yeah.
And I'm in many ways a huge Kiss fan, but I think there are a few bands who have done more to destroy their legacy than Kiss. But that having been said, I saw them a couple summers ago at Copenhagen, and I really enjoyed it.
That's cool. So at this time, I have a questionnaire that I love to ask all of my guests. It's called the Jauntlet. I don't know if you're familiar with the word Jawn, but here in Philadelphia, as our friend Kevin Allison once said, Philadelphians use the word Jawn like Smurfs use the word Smurf. So it can be anything you want when we get to that part, but it starts off with the one-hit wonders, and this is just you picking a favorite. Who do you prefer, Elton John or Billy Joel?
Oh, Elton John.
Yeah.
No question.
The second one, Debbie Harry or Joan Jett?
I would say Debbie Harry, though I really like them both. But I mean, Debbie Harry has certainly sung more songs that I love, though big Joan Jett fan.
Yeah. Fair. Aretha Franklin or Tina Turner?
That one's really hard. I mean, I guess Aretha Franklin, but then at the same time, it's so hard.
Yeah.
I don't know. I almost am not sure.
I've been recently, this year, I really got into that Tina Turner country album that she put out in like the 70s with like Bob Dylan covers on it and stuff. It's like really good.
Oh, I think I've maybe heard some of that. No, I don't know. That'll be my listening tonight.
Yeah, awesome. Nirvana or Pearl Jam?
Oh, Nirvana, no question.
Yeah. Janis Joplin or Stevie Nicks?
This is really hard. Also, I mean, again, I think Stevie Nicks is probably sang more songs that I love, but Janis Joplin was amazing. And there's an episode of the Dick Cavett show that's her and Raquel Welch are the guests. And, and they're both at the peak of their powers, arguably, even though I think Janis Joplin died a few weeks later. But, on the face of it, you go in thinking like, oh my gosh, Raquel Welch, she's amazing. But if you watch the show, by the end of it, you're going like, Janis, if you're thinking like in your fantasy world, who do you want to go have dinner with? It's Janis Joplin. No question.
Hell yeah. I love it. The big cliche, Beatles or the Stones?
That's really hard, but I think the Beatles have more songs where I'm just like, oh man, like mind blowing. But I mean, the Stones, come on. I don't know. It's really hard.
Yeah, it's a tough
probably the Beatles probably have more songs that just kind of where I'm just like, really get inside me. But just the Stones, the whole, I mean, there's so many reasons I don't know. It's really hard. Like, I think on the one hand, I think Stones is my answer, but like, I'm like, the Beatles are definitely better.
That's fair. Yeah, that tracks. I get that. The last one of the one-hit wonders, Bohemian Rhapsody or Stairway to Heaven?
I would say Stairway to Heaven, even though, no, I don't know, Stairway to Heaven, I was going to say like, oh, it's been beaten to death. But anytime I'm actually like listening to it and I'm able to go back in my head to being like 7 years old when my dad brought Led Zeppelin home because I have a memory of that record and that song that predates, hearing it 7 million times on FM radio. Like, yeah. So I have emotions and feelings about that, of experiencing that song when I didn't think of it as this song I've heard more than any other song, So, when I can kind of like reset my brain and listen from that place, then it's no question. But, Bohemian Rhapsody, that's pretty amazing too. But also like, that's another one, it's kind of we've heard it so many times and like used in all these different contexts and stuff that those are both songs that have been pretty exploited pretty severely, and that they're very hard to listen to, like, and go back like being like a kid with your record player. But I would still say Stairway to Heaven.
Yeah. It is interesting to go to force yourself to listen to something that is just so ubiquitous, like, I used to karaoke DJ, so I never want to hear, Don't Stop Believing ever again, like ever again. But every once in a while I'll decide like, let me just actually listen to this song and not some drunk 21-year-old screaming it into my microphone or whatnot. But, and you start to hear like, oh no, I understand why this is a thing. Like,
yeah, it's kind of like, like I think I used to think of that song as like kind of having like a cheese factor to it, but I don't really think that anymore. Now I'm kind of like, no, it's kind of amazing rock song, and it's like its structure is really interesting because it doesn't really deliver on the chorus till the end of the song, and then it just hammers you with the chorus, and you're out.
Yeah.
Which is like not doesn't really happen a lot.
It's I always talk about songs with a build that deserve a climax, and it's one of the most deserving climaxes to a build in music, like
Yeah.
it's great. It's really great. It was also really interesting to ask Paul Myers that question because of the fact that literally I took both of those as a Wayne's World reference. So
Oh yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking with Bohemian Rhapsody, and but I can't think of that song being in Wayne's World, but I'm guessing it is based
Yeah.
on what you said.
That's
But I haven't seen Wayne's World in a while.
It's wild. The back half of this is the top 10 countdown. Like I said, Jawn can be whatever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be music, it can be anything you want. First one, what was your first Jawn? What were you obsessed with when you were a kid?
Well, probably guitar. Like, even before I played it, that was probably the as a little kid, I was like, I'm gonna play that and do that.
Yeah. Oh, for
But
sure.
also hockey, but I think guitar was even before that.
Okay.
I was just like, and now it all worked out. I have a million guitars. Play guitar all the time.
Another universe could have been a hockey player, right? Could have been a NHL.
Maybe a hockey towel boy or something. I played
Yeah.
played it till my sophomore year in college, but I don't think I had like what it takes to really go the distance.
Okay. Number 2, what's your current Jawn? What are you into right now?
I mean, so many things, but I think ultimately it's just like what I'm doing. Right now I would say no. I've been like I just bought an iPad, and I had one before a long time ago, but I bought one recently, like last week, and I've been drawing on it because I normally draw on paper, but I wanted to like start drawing on the iPad, not instead of paper, but in addition to. So I've been kind of obsessed with that and doing that every day.
That's
And
cool.
It just made for more fun.
Yeah.
In my life.
Yeah, it's one of the applications of the iPad that, like, I don't know if by design they thought about it, but like it is so perfect to be able to kind of use like Illustrator and stuff like that to be able to use these problems these things that you used to have to do on like a Wacom tablet or whatnot, and now just do it on the screen itself. Like
Yeah, it's fun. So. We'll see what happens.
It's awesome. Number 3, what was the first concert you ever saw? First live show?
I think it was probably maybe there was something before this, but I think the thing I think of as my first real concert was I saw U2 on the Unforgettable Fire tour at Richfield Coliseum, and that was the first thing where I was like, I'm in a rock concert. I'm sure I'd seen concerts before that, but that was the first one where I was like, I'm going to this concert.
It's awesome. That's a good one. Number 4, what was your last live show you saw?
I saw King Diamond last night.
Wow. Where at?
At King's Theater in Brooklyn. It was King Diamond, Overkill, and Night Demon. And my girlfriend and I missed Night Demon, unfortunately, because we were having dinner. But saw Overkill and King Diamond. I guess my third time seeing King Diamond. And it's very enjoyable. I'm more of a Merciful Fate fan, but I'm always happy to see King Diamond in any context.
Very cool. Very cool. Number 5, what was your favorite concert?
I would say, I don't know, it's hard to say, like, I saw the Replacements on the Pleased to Meet Me tour in Cleveland in like 1987, maybe. And they had this band, the Royal Crescent Mob from Columbus, Ohio, opening. and they're, so it was my friends and I discovered that band that night, and like Replacements were already one of, our favorite bands. So that was a great show. And, gosh, I saw one like in like 2006, I think. I was in Miami. I was shooting a TV show, and it was during Art Basel, and I was walking along with my friend Phil, and we saw in the distance on the beach there was a show happening. So we walked over, and it was Peaches was playing, and we just stopped, and we ended up seeing most of the show. She was just playing, she and her band, on this beach, and I remember just thinking, like, this might be the greatest rock show I've ever seen. It was just so badass. But she ended it by taking off her clothes and running into the ocean, while about half the audience chased after her. I stayed behind, being a gentleman and all. But that always sticks out of my mind as like an amazing concert. It was just like I was just fully super psyched the whole time.
That's incredible. Absolutely incredible. Number 6, who have you never seen live that you wish you would have? They can be living or dead.
I'm embarrassed at some of the bands that I haven't seen live, especially because in every case I could have, and for whatever reason didn't. I never saw the Smiths live, even though they were coming to town to Cleveland, when I was a teenager. I didn't see them. I never saw Husker Du, and I definitely had a chance to. And, it was one of those things like I didn't have a car. Both things were like, oh, I didn't have a car or something. I remember something that happens to a teenager, like why I didn't go. But I've also, I don't know how this is even possible, but I've never seen Cheap Trick, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
Because I don't know how I haven't seen them live, but they're one of my favorite bands. I have no idea. I'm embarrassed to even admit it, that I have not seen them live. Like, what's wrong with me? But I think that it's just like they're always playing it on like Long Island or something. Like they're never playing like in my city.
In the
like
city,
where
yeah.
I live.
I get it. I totally get it.
Those 3 come to mind as groups that I somehow haven't seen.
Yeah, I missed Husker Du. I think by age, like I think I just wasn't into it when they were active. But I did see Bob Mould at a small club in Philly, like early 2000s, and it was absolutely fucking incredible. Like,
oh yeah, I mean I've seen Bob Mould play 7 bazillion times, but I never saw Husker Du. And but I've managed to see like a lot of, I've seen like people from different bands that have broken up, but I saw Bad Brains a lot. I saw Fugazi a lot. Saw a lot of bands like when they were, I did see a lot of amazing bands.
It's awesome. I dig it. Number 7, name an unappreciated Jawn, something you wish more people paid attention to.
My friend Andrew Choi performs under the name Saint Lennox, Lenox, and he's amazing, and I think everyone should listen to his records. I did a show with him, and that's how I met him, and I was like, whoa, it's amazing. So I think everyone should check him out.
I'll definitely check it out. I'll check it out after this call.
And then what else? Yeah, that comes to mind.
I dig it. Number 8, favorite album, which I know is a bullshit question, and people say that sometimes, but
that's really hard. Sometimes I would say like the Kinks Village Green Preservation Society, but like I could sit here and to give it, then I'll be like, no, it's this. It's, the Smiths, The Queen is Dead. Or like, no, it's Led Zeppelin 3. or it's Revolver, or it's the first 6 Black Sabbath albums, or it's I don't know. There's so many. I don't know. I'll go with the first answer, the Kinks.
Good one. It's a real good one. Number 9, name an artist whose output you'll consume anything they release.
Like someone who's still making music, or
Yeah,
still
it
making
can be.
art.
Yeah, it can be.
Still making art. I mean, there's tons. I guess I'm always like, am I getting his name right? Tim Robinson, the guy who did
Yes.
I Think You Should Leave. I think whatever he does next, I'll be fully on board. Because I really love Detroiters, and I loved I Think You Should Leave. And he comes, but I could name, there's many artists I would say that about, but just offhand, I was just thinking like how much I wrote him, which is, I don't do that often, just write someone. I just DM'd him on Instagram to be like, oh my gosh, which I don't really do stuff like that often, but him, Sleaford Mods, I always like what they're up to. Oh, really, do you know the Northern Boys?
Sounds familiar.
I've been really entertained by them lately, so I'm curious. Whatever they get up to next, I'll probably be on board with. Nick Cave. Who else? Gosh, I don't know. There's plenty, but also the director Aki Kaurismäki, Finnish director. I pretty much like anything he does. Either
right.
like I give anything he does either a 9 or a 10. Pretty much.
Interesting. I will definitely have to check something out. The 10th and final of the top 10 countdown. What is your favorite Jawn of all time? Again, can be anything you want it to be.
Oh, dogs.
Yeah. What kind of dog do you have? I meant to ask.
I have a boxer pit bull.
Okay.
Probably like 10 other breeds mixed in there, but yeah, I think dogs are my main focus in life. Or, they're kind of, if I could find a way to like not do anything but hang out with dogs that wouldn't involve being a veterinarian or a dog walker or a doggy daycare employee or a dog washer. I don't know what job there is with dogs other than those working in a shelter. If there's just like a thing that's just like a dog bon vivant, that's like someone who just kind of walks around and enjoys dogs, which is basically what I do. I walk around with my own dog, and then I encounter other dogs. And then even when I'm walking around without my dog, which I prefer not to do, anytime I see any dog that's within like 20 feet, I can't not say like, hey, buddy. Just, it has to be audible too. I don't know why. Like, I feel like the dog's be like, well, that's weird. Why didn't Dave say hello? I'm just they're pretty much my main thing in life, but it's the only thing of the things that I love. And I kind of figured out how to make a living at all the other things I love, but dogs, I've not figured out how to do it other than those things I just mentioned that I don't want to do.
Yeah.
I like walking dogs, but to walk dogs, you have to deal with dog owners and humans, which I do not a fan of. Humans in general, I'm very against.
I always get really upset if I see a dog and the dog doesn't like me. And it's very rare that it happens, but I'm like, no. I'm a guy who loves dogs and dogs love me. And I don't know why you don't like me. Why can't we be friends?
Yeah, it's one of those things. I always be like, oh, this dog doesn't get it.
Yeah.
Right now.
He'll come around.
Yeah, he'll come around. Just got to check back with him. He'll get it. Soon enough.
That's right. So this Friday, because this will be on Monday, we'll be in the future. But this Friday, November 8th, you are at Philly Moco with Valley Lodge and the Blackburns. And then the
and
newest album.
Also.
Who else?
Mikey Erg is also
Oh,
playing.
very cool. Very cool. And then the latest album, Shadows in Paradise, is out on all the streaming services. Is there physical of that? Is there?
No, there might be at some point, but there isn't at this point.
Okay.
But yeah, it's gonna be fun, and it will be our first Philly show. And also, like, we've only played Valley Lodge. We've played primarily in New York. We toured Japan. We did Bonnaroo. And then we've played in Cleveland once and Columbus once. So I can't stress to you what a rare opportunity it is to see us outside of New York City. But as I was saying earlier, we're kind of like spreading our wings a little bit. And we're coming to Philly. Who knows? Might come to Baltimore right after next. Who knows?
That's awesome. And the residency, you have a few more dates of that, right?
Yeah, Monday is the last night for now. It's tomorrow, November 1st, and then Monday, November 4th. But and those shows are almost sold out. So that's cool. But hopefully there'll be more. It'll come back in some iteration.
Very cool. And of course, the podcast, what was it? Axe
Lords. Yeah,
Axe
we've released 2 episodes, one with Alex Skolnick from Testament, and then one with Steve Vai. And then we have a bunch more coming. Matthew Cause from Not a Surf, Karina Reichman, sort of from the Fish world. So it's going to be all manner of players, it's not a shreddy show. It's all kinds of players show.
That's killer. If anyone wants to find you on the socials, what's the best way to track you down?
I have an internet website at Dave Hill or Mr. Dave Hill at Mr. Dave Hill at Mr. Dave Hill. That's the other one, yeah.
Excellent.
And that's Instagram, TikTok, Threads.
Okay. Are you into the TikTok? Do you do you're into the?
I was into it. Well, I wouldn't say into it, but I would say that I was doing it quite a bit. But then it went from I was getting all this exposure to all of a sudden, like, they just stopped. Like, my videos would get like no views, and I'm not sure why, but it seemed, I don't want to sound paranoid, like maybe I'm shadow banned or something, but I know I made some analogy where I was not talking about giving a hand job to a dog or suggesting that anyone do that, but I compared something to giving a hand job to a dog. I basically used those words somehow, and ever since then, it's just been like 10 views.
Okay.
So yeah, I don't know. So I'm mostly Instagram is where it's at for me.
Right on. All right. Well, Dave, thank you so much for not just for doing this, but for all of the incredible music and comedy and books that you've put out. And
thank you so much.
And I'm super excited. I'm trying to clear something off my schedule to be able to make the Philly Mocha show. But that will be awesome.
I hope you can make it. It's going to be a fun one. I promised you.
My thanks again to Dave for hanging out with me on the show today. Valley Lodge's latest album, Shadows in Paradise, is out now wherever you stream music. And you can catch them this Friday, November 8th at Philomoka alongside Mikey Erg and the Blackburns. Tickets are still available. For all things Dave Hill, visit Dave on the web at www.davehillonline.com. Links to all of those are, of course, as always, in the show notes. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to subscribe to the Yo, That's My Jawn podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. And guys, it is never too late to get yourself a super awesome Jawn Scout Merit Badge for citizenship of the world just by rating and reviewing us. Don't forget to visit www.yothat'smyjawn.com for the link tree with links to articles, merchandise, and all of the previous episodes of this podcast, guest appearances on other podcasts, and more. And while you are there, please be sure to sign up for our mailing list to get all of the updates delivered straight into your inbox. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/YoThat'sMyJawn for updates and live streams. Follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Twitter X at Yo That's My Jawn, and search Yo That's My Jawn on YouTube to find the Yo That's My Jawn YouTube channel. Like and subscribe the heck out of that ish. We want to hear from you. Reach out, and touch some Jawn. Well, that's all I got for you now. Make sure you get out there and vote, and I will catch you on the next episode. Blue skies. Until next time, everybody.
That's my Jawn.
Displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. You taste things that don't need to be measured.
Yo, That's My Jawn is a Lonely Monk production. Written and produced by yours truly, Nate Runkle. Theme song by me, under the moniker Nate 3.0. Special thanks to Fox Run Brands, DX Ferris, Andrew Scott, Maggie Poulos, Dan Drago, Natalie Runkle, and the beautifully vibrant and wickedly stunning Katie Daubney. If you or anyone you know has any ideas they would like to share or any guests they would like to hear on the podcast, please feel free to reach out to us at yothat'smyjawn@gmail.com or hit us up on the socials at yothat'smyjawn. Until next time, be sure to displace the guilt and embrace the pleasure. Tilt your head back and shout to the world, Yo, that's my Jawn.